Welcome to the Voices of War, a podcast with a simple vision to bring to life the true costs of war through the voices of those who've lived it. I'm your host Maz, and I hope you enjoy this episode. Today I'm speaking with Ehsaan. He came to Australia in December 2013 as a refugee from Afghanistan. He worked as an interpreter for Australian forces from 2009 to 2013 and was ultimately resettled here with his family due to an increasing threat to his life. He joins me today to discuss the reality faced by many of those who have worked with Australians and other coalition forces over the past 20 years. Ehsaan is someone who has personally experienced what many are going through today in Afghanistan. During our chat, I will use only his first name and will not talk about where he's from directly, as he still has family on the ground whose safety remains uncertain. Ehsaan, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Now, just before we delve into your experiences getting out of Afghanistan, maybe we can start with a little bit of a background about you and the work you've done. What kind of work did you do with the Aussies on the ground?
So as an interpreter, I started working with Aussies in 2009 in Uruzgan province in TK, and our job was mostly focused on having training of Afghan National Army and attend meetings on a daily basis about the security of the area, about the cooperation from to the Afghan army, and to provide any planning help or any sort of help which basically Australian mentors, I would say, were providing to Afghan army. And we were the sort of middle person to translate these whole things.
And I guess one of the things that perhaps many Australians and also others across the West who haven't been to Afghanistan and who haven't worked with interpreters, they may not realize how essential the work was. Can you just talk about that a little bit? Because I think that will give some context and why your role in particular was so important.
Oh, look, it's as an interpreter, when you compare, interpreting or translating in Australia right now and compare it to when you are on the sort of a battleground in Afghanistan, it's completely different because first, it's a cultural differences. And secondly, you are translating in a way that it should be, some words, you have to use it the way that doesn't sound inappropriate or disrespectful. So mostly beside even with the translation, you would also think both sides of using the proper cultural advising to the mentors and even to the Afghan side too, something we knew about the Aussies and something as an interpreter and something I as an Afghan knew about my culture. I would say to the Australian officers or soldiers that that we can approach. And next time we can approach in this way that will be more polite or these sort of things.
And I think that's an important point because one of the things that we're learning, particularly now as the situation has rapidly changed and ultimately, the coalition has quote unquote, or the war supporting the Afghan national government with the coalition has been lost to the Taliban because they now have ultimately full control. That's something that's really important because many are now saying, and many analysts are making the conclusions, and I think through my own experiences, I tend to agree, is that we didn't always understand the cultural context. We didn't always understand who the key players were or how Afghanistan functions as a country or even the tribal affiliations, the cultural connotations. We just didn't really understand that. What was your experience and how did you help the Aussies that you worked with understand those cultural nuances and how receptive were we generally to your knowledge?
Look, it's as I mentioned before, as an interpreter, it's an important job. You sort of a connection of these Afghan and Australian culture and people out there, and the one who are there to help and the one who need help. You have to give right message. You have to say that in a right way. So it was very important as an interpreter that you sort of give proper awareness to both sides, and always as an Australian soldier, whoever were all the soldiers during this whole, like, my employment time I've worked with, is basically the target was very clear: to help Afghan army, to help to a level that they can have the better security for Afghanistan. They can have that stability to Afghan people. So their role as a soldier was very clear, that we are here to help uh, Afghan people and Afghan soldiers to keep the country stable. But in the current situation, as I see right now, what happened to Afghanistan, it's a bit different right now. It's all the sacrifices, all the hard work we did, all the intentions we had, it sort of went opposite.
Hmm. Hmm. And while you were on the ground, now just to make clear, you were not a trained soldier. You were never a trained soldier. You were quite young at the time as well. What were the risks that you faced when you were on the ground? Because you were, like I said, you were not armed. And again, this might be obvious for some in my audience, but perhaps not everybody. You were unarmed, and you spent your days with the Australian soldiers. What did that mean to your security?
Look, it was always a threat from the first day when you join as an interpreter, and when you sort of, from the first step of coming to like most of those interpreting or jobs and companies were towards southern part of Afghanistan. In the northern part, it was, at that time when I was working, it was very, like, compared to southern Afghanistan, it was a bit stable. So there wasn't much of a job opportunities. So a person like me who come from a northern part of Afghanistan had to travel about 13 hours in a car with a full risk on, like, on the way, if they, if the Taliban catch me, if they ask me where I'm going, because still in Afghanistan, the cloth wise or the culture wise or the language accents a bit different from south and north. So they sort of get the idea from talking to you that you're not from that area. So it was always a risk involved. Okay, well, what if they catch me? What will happen? But I mean, the message was pretty clear. If they would have caught any of an interpreter, like during their initial phase of joining as an interpreter, and then that would have been clear. They could, they were killing straight away. Like you are the proper infidel. You're joining infidels. That was their clear message at that time. But still, I mean, some audience would be thinking, okay, if you knew that, that risk was that high, why would you join? It was the message. Well, I mean, the thing is, it was very clear at that time that I can't do anything else or in a better way to serve Afghanistan or to help my country build in other profession, rather than, like, being an interpreter. Like, I could join Afghan army, but it was, again, my knowledge and my ability at that point was like, I want to do a bit better. So I feel like interpreting would have been a better chance to help build Afghanistan in a better way, to make Afghanistan in a better way. So that was the whole point. So then, as I said, that that was the first step of of being an interpreter, that you accept those all risks, and then once you become an interpreter, that's another risk. Like when you are sort of in the battlefield with the because Australian soldiers and Afghan interpreters, it's like I know we were not trained. I know we were not like proper soldiers, but we were like in one room all the soldiers were sleeping. In other room we like interpreters were sleeping in the same base. In the most of my employment was in a like forward on those operation bases or patrol bases, which are like kind of a frontline areas. So majority of my employment was in those sort of areas. So once I was leaving, like, you know, I was spending most of like 5 to 6 months of my employment in Uruzgan, and then when I was going back to home, I had to fly from Uruzgan to Kabul because by road it was very risky to travel by car from Uruzgan to Kandahar, then from Kandahar to Kabul, which was about 9 hours of going in the car, you know, facing all the the southern part of Afghanistan, you know, Taliban risk. So that's why the easiest way was like to sort of split the risk of, you know, driving
compromise
13 hours into, kind of compromise. And then still I had to go again 6 hours of driving in a cab or in a passenger car where you have 3-4 strangers sitting with you. Still, as a passenger, when you're traveling with someone like for 6 hours, obviously someone would ask you, you know, like not even if personal, still, you know, on a general talk, you know, someone asks you, what is your profession? What do you do for work? You know, and even in that part, you have to make a story that, you know, they don't know that because you can't trust anyone at that point. That what if someone is a spy of a Taliban? What if they catch you? What if they, chase you? Or what if they see where I live? And yeah, you don't only think about yourself. You think about your family, your relatives, your whole, like, you know, area, that the whole, you know, relatives you have in that place. That it was a bit risky. Yeah.
And again, just for the audience who doesn't have experience with this, what happens to those who were, and even now, who are caught by the Taliban, who worked, you know, people like yourself who were interpreters, and what happened to their families?
Look, there were few incidents happened that, you know, I remember when I was coming in 2013, because we were like the second or third families of those Afghan interpreters who came to Australia. After us, there were like hundreds of them came in, like they were coming in a month's time. Every second month you were seeing, you know, there were interpreters coming from Afghanistan to Australia. But during that process, I remember one of our colleagues, he had a visa even ready, I think, and like we was waiting for his, you know, a call that, you know, when you should come and when you should, you know, come for the flight. He got killed at his own, at his house, like, even before coming to Australia. Like, his family was left without any support or anything. So he lost his life because somehow Taliban realized he was working as an interpreter. So,
and you said
still those people, So I mean, sorry to interrupt. Those people, the one who are currently waiting in Afghanistan. Like I have a Facebook, WhatsApp group of all those interpreters on a daily basis. How desperately they go to the airport. They have those documents, those appreciation letters which says that how good they have served Australian Army and how good they have done their job, but still waiting days and days because currently the way Taliban is saying that, we're not touching anyone, we won't be saying anything to anyone, even if that is an interpreter or Afghan soldier or anything like that. But still, it's not their trusty word we trust, actually. We have seen their betrayal a few times before. And that's why everyone is in a rush of, especially those interpreters who are in Kabul airport or who are waiting for their approval letter, I would say, or a visa information or a flight information. A few different categories right now in a pending situation.
And I guess we have heard reports even as even just earlier this afternoon, of the Taliban not keeping their word of the amnesty for anybody who worked for foreigners or ANSF.
Yeah.
And of particular note, I think, has been around Kandahar. What have you heard that's happening on the ground at the moment?
Look, Kandahar has been a battleground from the start, from this last 20 years of this whole war. Kandahar has been a battleground for for international, for NATO or ISAF, and versus Taliban. It's basically the interpreters were always the main target for them. It was the numerous killings happened of those interpreters. If even when I was there, actually, we were hearing that a sniper Taliban killed an Afghan interpreter during patrol in the area, or one of the interpreter was leaving or the base, he got shot. One of the interpreter was kind of was going home, he got kidnapped or killed or beheaded. These sort of things. And think that way, how full of revenge they are for interpreters. Will you think that will be forgiven just like that? It's hard to say. It's hard to say that they will spare them, those interpreters. So
I mean, I think you made an interesting point before. How they are perceived is ultimately worse than the infidels, worse than the foreigners, because they have, in the eyes of the Taliban, they have betrayed their own people and sold themselves out to the infidels. And I guess that's a very difficult thing to, as you say, forgive, regardless of what amnesty promises have been made. But that's on a higher level, and we also know that Taliban is not really one cohesive body. There are multiple different factions who don't all necessarily listen to the same leaders. So it's one thing to say at the leadership at the top that amnesty will be afforded, but on the ground that doesn't necessarily translate to that amnesty actually being afforded. Are you aware? And again, we're hearing reports, and this may be something you're not aware of, but I read it time and time again. Taliban intelligence is looking for interpreters. How do they actually do this? What does that actually mean?
Look, it's I remember they were like when we were working as an interpreter, there were a few things we were being extra careful with. It may sound funny, or it may sound a bit weird actually, but it was true actually. When we were leaving, when we were thinking of going on leave as an interpreter, 15, 20 days before, or 30 days, like a month before. Usually, when you were working in the bases, like as an interpreter, you're wearing a T-shirt, just like a half sleeve T-shirt, or something that V-neck T-shirt. Usually, we were like wearing proper full sleeve shirts on. That what if Taliban catch us? Usually, what they were doing, they were sometime they were telling the people to take off your shirts. If your hands were like, you wear your T-shirt, your hands are half like, change the skin color.
They're a little bit more tanned. Yeah.
The little bit of tan. Yeah. So they were checking that tanning of the skin color. If your tanning, skin color was sort of a tan, in your arms, or just around the shoulder side, they were thinking they are the interpreters, and that was enough for them to kill realize that this is an interpreter. That was one clue. And the other one was basically sometime, as I said before, that those cab drivers, or those the people who work nearby those bases, at that time actually, the near patrol bases, or all the big airports, or I would say, I want to mention the names, but they say like a CAF base, the Kandahar base, or like a Kabul base,
Mm-hmm.
or like any other province,
Any of the main points, main concentration
main
areas.
point. So main point. Yeah, true. Yeah. So there were some cab drivers who were specifically working as an intelligence for Taliban.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a friend who was telling me a story that once he came out of from Kandahar base, and he sit in the cab, and wanted to go to his province, but or to the main center of all the station, like a bus stand or the cab stand, so he can travel to his province. So in between that 15-minute trip, he realized that he started to chatting and calling in a code words that I remember. I don't remember the exact words, but he was saying they were using the code word like I don't know. It's a made up word. It's not the code, but yeah, it's like I have sheep with me, this and that. I'm on my way. I'm 10 minutes away. I'll be there, or something like that. So that interpreter realized, oh, there is something happening. So he jumped out of the car actually in the middle of before reaching that destination to save himself, because he realized that cab driver was going to give him to, or just take him to Taliban.
Oh, okay, right.
I mean, yeah. So basically, yeah, you were being extra careful with every part of it. Yeah, there are some there.
Wow. Yeah. And it's and the other important point to mention here, it's not just your how careful you yourself must be, but also your family, right? Because we talked offline about this. You're away for extended periods of time, and your family will get asked questions. How did you overcome those challenges?
Oh, it was basically whenever they were whenever I was working or when I was on my job, actually, usually they were saying that my son or my brother. Obviously, when you're 5-6 months away from home, people ask questions that you have a young older son, or you have a son. Where is he? What do you do? How come he's not home all the time? I was like, you have to make a proper unofficial non-government sort of job that that doesn't have to do anything with ISAF, NATO, or even Afghan officials, actually. So you have to say something. He worked for like in my story, my parents were always telling, he worked for one of the construction company in Kabul. We do a lot of the administration work. So he does that in Kabul, and mostly he's busy there. That's why he's 5-6 months away from home. He come for only leave of for 10 days or 20 days or a month. So they were always lying about my job.
Yeah, of course. And your cover was blown ultimately. Can you tell the story of that?
My cover was as an interpreter with Australian. I started in 2009. But even before that, I was an interpreter for Americans in 2006, and then in 2008 with the Netherlands forces in Uruzgan. And during this whole time, I was the same story was used, but in just few months before, I think it was in 2013 actually, just few months before coming to Australia, one of the Afghan soldiers saw me in Uruzgan in a Chora district, actually, where I was working. That operation base was, and he saw me. Oh, I was shocked. I couldn't say anything because my whole truth was revealed, and my whole he's like, okay, I was lying. He was lying all the time. I could see his face. You have that, okay, you've been lying to us, that, you work as an administrator in Kabul for a construction company. What are you doing here? So I couldn't lie to him. I was like, I'm an interpreter. Please don't tell anyone at home. But of course, he told his parents, and his parents told some relatives told some other people. The rumors or the news went sort of to some bad people too. Luckily, after a few months, I came to Australia. But after coming to Australia, a few months later, my parents started to receive call that, okay, your son, we know now, your son used to work for us infidels. I mean, for them, they just mention infidels. They don't care Australian, American, or any other forces. Yeah, like you for the international forces, and your son did a sinful job. It's a sin, and we want him back, or you have to come and meet us. That was the message from them. But my father first didn't take it seriously. It's like, okay, yeah, now because my sons are gone, maybe some people try to scare us. But after a few weeks, my brother got chased he was on his way to home from gym, and he got chased by a car, and they would try to get him in the car, according to my brother. Like when pretty much I went out from the gym, just walking for a minute, suddenly I saw a car on the road stopping, and when they opened the door, I saw already they have weapons, and he didn't think any interpreting or anything like that, so he realized that something's wrong. So he saw a home next door. He just went inside to a stranger's home to save himself. And because it was in the middle of the city, like where the people crowd and everything, those Taliban or whoever the people were, they didn't go inside that stranger home. And luckily that stranger home saved my brother from being kidnapped or killed, or
And just for that, just for context, your brother was also he also worked as an interpreter, right?
Yeah, no, like my brother, that was my younger brother. So my other brother, yes, me and my younger brother, we both were interpreters. Even my cousin, he was an interpreter in Uruzgan for Australians. So we were here actually. Me, my younger brother, we were all here. And that was my another younger brother who got chased from.
Okay, right. So he wasn't actually. Right. So he wasn't actually.
Yeah, he wasn't an interpreter. He wasn't. He was just a student. Actually, he was a high school student. He had nothing to do with. But of course, I can't say he had nothing to do with my job, because as I mentioned earlier, when you join as an interpreter, you just take your whole family to risk. You you just accept that risk. Yeah.
Yeah, and just for a little bit of clarity, the ANSF soldier that was from the same province as you, he wasn't necessarily a Taliban supporter or anything like that. He merely couldn't keep a secret, as most of us can't keep a secret, as most of us can't help but gossip. So it wasn't. Yeah. He wasn't ill-intended. He didn't want you to get caught. He merely just told his parents, who then told someone else, who then told someone else. So the word got out, right? Just so I'm clear on that. That he wasn't.
Yeah, no. No, he wasn't a bad person. He wasn't someone like, he was, later, because after that I had no choice. So he was a good friend. He was, because he was working in the same base with us. And his whole thing was because I lied to people around. So he kind of had that laugh on me that, why would you lie? Something like that. Because, then I told him, of course I would lie. Why wouldn't I lie? I'm an interpreter. You know how interpreters are. So he went home, just a normal, a parent-son talk. Must have told his family that, I went home. Uruzgan, Ehsaan worked in Uruzgan as an interpreter. And, his parents, must have told other family members or relatives as a general talk. And that general talk sort of become,
general
that
knowledge.
News sort of went to the, general knowledge and went to the bad people. That's how it went, actually.
And of course, he was also at risk anyway, himself being a member of the army. So I suspect for him was risky as well.
I mean, he would use the same path as me, actually, like when going home. Like as an Afghan soldier, even like from the luckily as an interpreter, you get a chance to have a flight from, from where I was working.
Mm-hmm.
But he was also in a, like, in a more risk, because he had to go in the, those, the 13, 14 hours of, passenger cars, actually, or those commercial cab driving cars,
Mm-hmm.
to go home. He also had to, make some stories, wear some proper clothes, according to the area where he is. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah. Now, so just to come back to the point of your departure from Afghanistan, because you have received some credible threats to your safety, which prompted you to then apply to come to Australia. Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
So can you tell us a little bit about that? How did that, what happened? What was the risk that you faced in your family, and what that journey of coming to Australia?
Well, now it started in 2013. Actually, it was because the news of Australian withdrawing from Afghanistan came. I think, if I remember it properly, it was in 2012 or a year before that, and we were in a request to Australian Defence that, the risk we are going through every day. We really need help. We can't stay here anymore, and our families are also in a risk. So we have to leave. You guys have to do something, that we can't stay in Afghanistan right now. And after, talking to, there were like some VIP journals were coming all the time. Some politicians were coming, and inconsistent, efforts and trying. After, such, hard requests, I think there was, if I remember the politician name, was it Julia Gillard that was at that time?
Yes.
Yeah. Then, we received the good news that, Australia is happy to accept those interpreters, those Afghans who worked as an interpreter, but only with immediate family.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest of the family were left behind. And and that's how it happened.
And since you left back in 2013, and I think, again, we spoke offline, but you talked about your parents. They ultimately, because of the threats they started receiving after you departed, they ultimately have to leave. So is that right?
Yes, they ultimately have to leave, and they had no choice of staying in Afghanistan, because I was also, like, once, as I mentioned the story before about my brother, when he got chased. After that, when they told me the story, so I told them, okay, that it's risky for those young boys, or my younger brothers, to stay there. And at that time, my brother, the one who got chased, he was about 17 something, 17, 18.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, okay, because he's young enough in a manner that he can leave the country, I had no other choice of sending him somewhere else. And also I couldn't afford to send my whole family to other countries. So I told them that, okay, just send him to Dubai was the best choice, or UAE was the best choice at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was easier to get a visa for him, and he could stay safer there.
Mm-hmm.
So I sent him there. And after that incident, my parents never lived in their own home. They always kept, moving from one place to another, like stay for a few weeks or days in one trusted family or relative place, and then few weeks or months in another family or relative place. And then eventually I was like, okay, this is not working. So me and my younger brother, who is in Australia, we came to a decision that, okay, because Australia don't have anything for our parents or extended family. So this is the only option we can do. So we told them, you guys should go to India. it's a bit safer for you guys, and at least you'll be safer. We'll be like relieved that okay, you are a bit safe right now. But of course, that also come with the sacrifices that currently my mother, me and my brother, we are here, married, our kids, and everyone is here. Most of the family is here right now. There's only two siblings, one brother, and two sisters are there. Always talk, always miss emotionally. She's like, she's not very stable right now. Every time we talk, she cries that, okay, I miss you guys, because, her all grandchildren or grandkids are away from her. And it is heartbreaking sometimes, when your parents talk to you, and sometimes you can't do video calls with them because they feel like, okay, they may cry and they may become very emotional, and try to distract them. But that's luckily I could take them out, but my wife's side family, I couldn't take them out because I didn't have much financially. I have a work enough that I can feed my family and kids here, and just enough that they can live their lives in India, pay the rent and just the grocery money. That's it. And but the family my wife's family back in Afghanistan, they're still at risk. And just about a few weeks ago, I lost my 17 years old brother-in-law, who was just a young boy, graduated from school, selected for engineering, civil engineering. He was ready to go on a scholarship to Turkey, actually, so he can do his studies in Turkey. But we lost him because of the Taliban. He got attacked by Taliban in Kunduz. And since then, I have to distract my wife in a way that she doesn't think much about him. But of course, you have social media, you have friends, you have relatives who still, can't forget that innocent boy.
Yeah. And that's your wife's younger brother who's as you said, 16 years old. And you said that was only recently, so that was in this recent takeover.
This recent takeover that happened, I think, in about in mid-July somewhere. So not even about a month or something, actually. And after losing him, I have only two brother-in-laws, and their parents were shattered. Actually, their parents can't keep thinking about them. And I told them, I insisted, after begging and insisting so much, like, please, go somewhere safer. I mean, safer right now, Afghanistan is not safer at all right now. So the best option was to come to Kabul, and they came to Kabul 2 days before Taliban take over. So, and now they're under Taliban control, and they're just stuck at home. Actually, every day I talk to them, tell them, please don't go out, because I don't trust these people. No matter what they say, you're free to go. You don't have to worry this and that. I still don't trust them. And so my parents, my siblings, emotionally, they're not stable in India, and physically and emotionally, I would say my parents-in-law or my brother-in-laws, they're not safe in Afghanistan. So it's hard sometimes.
And I think now currently Australia is trying to desperately get as many interpreters out as possible. And of course, we know that that's not going as smoothly as we'd like it to. And far too many are falling through the cracks and getting rejections for various reasons, rejections of visa. What is how are they all feeling at the moment? I mean, you said you're in a number of groups, WhatsApp and Facebook groups. What is the general sentiment amongst those who are waiting for news?
They're eagerly waiting for the news. They're in a fear, as I mentioned before. They're in the same fear that one day, I'm not sure how long this whole evacuation will go on for. Americans are there in the airport. That's why they're like not freely, but somehow can go to the airport and say that I'm in a risk. Please take me with you. Take me, out of there. Australia doesn't have any fixed plan for that those interpreters. Those interpreters who are in the WhatsApp group right now. They had every day from last I've been following those boys or seeing their, because I don't have anything to tell them, so I just read their words, hear their voice messages that every day they go to the airport and stand there with their letters, with their certifications, with their recommendations that, we need help. And of course, they're using their emails, try to tell the Australian government that we are in trouble. But of course, there are some rules, there are some process or procedures they have to follow. So still they're waiting for it. I think there's only 1 or 2 evacuation flights were happened, which majority of them were Afghans or Australian citizens or those permanent residents. Very few were the one who I'm not sure how many. I haven't heard anything from those interpreters if someone, no one said that, okay, I got an approval from the Australian Defence or Australian Immigration, and I've been called to come to the airport. No interpreter in that group have said anything from last 3 months, I would say. The WhatsApp group which I've following. So they're in trouble. They're in shock right now, and they're not sure how long they will be staying, how long they will be alive. Because once I'm kind of I'm not a politician. I'm not something that I can predict properly, but I'm predicting in a way that once all these evacuation soldiers or the one who are Americans, who's having security, right? Once they leave, then there's no future for those people, and you never know what will happen to them and to their families and to their relatives. Because Taliban never leaves people when they want to take revenge. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Ehsaan, I'm conscious of your time, and I would just like to finish up on the positive note that has been your story. I mean, and this is something that I also want to stress. Now, you came to Australia as a refugee. I myself was a refugee, as many of my listeners will know. I fled the Bosnian War. I lived in Germany for 3.5 years before then migrating to Australia. One of the things that strikes me, or that's one of the things that we don't necessarily discuss often enough, is the lives of those refugees who then come to Australia. More often than not, they end up being very productive members of the Australian society, and I think you are no exception. You've been working. Maybe tell us a little bit about your life since coming to Australia and what you're up to now.
My life actually, when I came to Australia, pretty much, from the first day I was trying to be productive, to be honest, start to find some work and, try to, do something better. And I tried to study, but, I had few family trouble that I couldn't focus properly. So I had to leave the studies. And then I started working in various jobs, actually, all those retails, all those the cleaning, I would say. I did those kind of the jobs. And currently I'm I'm studying part time. I'm also an Uber driver, I would say. Yeah, I'm an Uber driver. I'm also working on one of those essential. Currently in this COVID situation, working in one of the service stations. So yeah, that is busy enough for a refugee who's trying to be productive to this community actually. And I try with my studies. I'm currently studying Bachelor of IT. I'm trying to, once I finish this, and I try to make it work or serve for the community here, because Australia is my home now, and I want to be as productive as I can to serve people here.
I can certainly empathize with that, and I think that's probably a message that I think is important for people to realize. Those who haven't lived through things that you have, the second chance of life that Australia does give people like yourself, people like myself. I think it's a debt we carry, for our whole lives, and we, at least most of the people that I know, try to do our best to serve the community that has welcomed us with open arms. Ehsaan, I think we'll finish on that note. I really do appreciate your time. I think the message you've given and the insights you're giving in this conversation are really important for people to understand. Firstly, the closeness between interpreters and our troops on the ground, and how important and critical your work was. And then secondly, how genuine the threat is that you have lived with and that many like yourself live with today. And I hope that this conversation does open up further discussion on what can be done and what should be done, and that more people actually understand the grave situation interpreters find themselves in at this very moment. So thank you very much for your time, mate.
Thank you, Mas. Thank you for having me. And I hope my message give some positive energy or positive feedback to the people who are thinking that refugees are just a burden. We are not burden here. We are a part of the community, and we want to do better. And for those interpreters who are waiting, and for those families who are waiting, I hope when those Afghan interpreters and those families are here one day, and they will be doing the same as I'm doing here to serve this community and to serve this country, which I'm very thankful to.
Well said. Thank you very much.
Thank you, man. Thank you, man. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of The Voices of War. You can access all episodes on www.thevoicesofwar.com or by subscribing wherever you get your favourite podcasts. And while you're there, please give us a review, as we'd love to hear what you think. If you'd like to recommend a guest for the show, you can reach me on info@thevoicesofwar.com.